Thank you, Whitney, for taking the time to talk to us ahead of EduFest, which is just 2 days away.
Yeah.
We're very lucky to have you on campus today. You've just spent the full day with our students. But in 2 days' time, you'll be talking at EduFest. Can you please tell us who you are, what is your name, what is your job title, and what does that really mean? What do you do in that position?
Sure. So my name is Whitney Soule, and I am Vice Provost and Dean of Admissions at the University of Pennsylvania. And that really means that I'm the Dean of Admission for the 4 undergraduate schools. There are 12 schools at University of Pennsylvania. 4 of them have undergraduate schools within them. So I'm responsible for admission to those 4, which is nursing, engineering, Wharton Business, and the college, which is liberal arts. And the vice provost part of my title is I report directly to the provost, who is the chief academic officer of the entire university for all schools. And so I work within the provost center as well as being the dean of admissions.
And was university admissions something that you always wanted to do since you were a little girl, or was that something that you kind of fell into? What was the story behind that?
I think most of us in admissions fall into it. I was an English major for my undergraduate. And when I graduated, I took a job with the American Red Cross and worked for the American Red Cross for a year. And then there was an opening in the admission office at my alma mater. And I was excited about that. And I had been a tour guide and done a lot of things in admissions as a student. So took that job, and 35 years later, I'm still working not only in higher ed, but specifically in admissions, and have worked in small liberal arts colleges as well as university, being University of Pennsylvania.
At EduFest.
Yes.
I imagine that the topic of your session is going to be around university admissions. Is that a fair assumption, or what will the session be about?
It's a little bit broader. It's called The Enduring Value of Higher Education, and it's really taking up the subject that there's a lot of public question around the cost of higher education and what is the real return of education now, and is it still worth the investment? Is it worth the time? And if it is, which schools are best for that investment? And so the goal of the session really is to draw way back and think about the fundamental principles of education, broadly speaking, that show up in undergraduate or pre-college work. But then where does higher education fit into that, and where do extended degrees fit into that? And what does endure about education even when the world around us is changing really rapidly? The narrative around skills that are necessary to meet the moment, how do we as educators tie those things together? What kind of language do we need to be able to explain what we're providing over the course of 4 years or through graduate education?
And for someone that might be tempted to go to your session during EduFest, but is thinking, well, this sounds like a very US-centric college kind of session, and I'm more interested in UK-based education for my university degree or something like this, would you say that topic that you'll be discussing is applicable to both, or is it more US-based?
I would say it's global. It really is the fundamental principles of education that are being questioned globally. And how do we, I mean, everybody at this conference is already invested in education, so it's how do we as professionals take up this question, and how can we work together to find language that will help to convey the value that we know is there to many public conversations that are feeling insecure about it, and how do we, in our roles, do better with trying to help people understand what it is we provide.
And when Whitney Soule is not thinking about higher education,
That never happens.
which I was going to say, I'm sure there are far and few moments in between throughout the year when you're not thinking about higher education, but hopefully you do get some downtime. How do you recharge? What do you do? What hobbies or passions of yours do you have? Do you like reading books? Do you like listening to music, watching TV? How do you disconnect?
I do all of those things, but not a lot of time for any one of those things. I do have an 84-pound dog that requires being walked regularly, so that for me is really nice. I don't bring my phone with me. I just, experience being outdoors with him. That's a very contemplative time for me, and I really enjoy that and can just sort of unwind, whether it's the start of the day or the end of the day. I do read, not nearly as much as I would like to. Having been an English major, I really do love reading. I don't get as much time for that as I like. I usually listen to books that are more industry-based, so a lot of things about education. But when I'm reading a real book, I'm reading for myself. I'm reading fiction or even nonfiction. I just finished reading a book called Miracle Creek, which is a fairly new book from fiction, which has all the great components of the human condition of relationship and loss and grief and how people want to find one another and be connected. It's also really intense, so if you're looking for a light book, that's not it. I also just read Joan Didion's The Year of Magical Thinking, which is a classic, but I didn't get around to it till this year. Yeah. And I'm ready for the next season of Hacks because I burned through everything that was already there, so I'm ready for this season. That one, again, human connection, and how people find one another and relate to each other. So.
And in a way, I would say for Hacks, particularly, even celebrating the differences, right?
Oh, for sure.
Rather than always just going for the person that thinks like you, looks like you, acts like you.
Exactly. It's like the most basic human connection, right? Of, those main characters are so drawn to each other, even though they test each other by just the nature of their being. And it's just beautiful relationship. Those are the primary characters, but the whole supporting cast represents that. I love it. And it's very funny. So it's an easy show to watch.
Is there anything else that you would like to share with EduFest attendees before we see you again on Friday?
I would just say that thank you to everybody who's coming. I love my work. I love talking about it, and I love being with people who value education as much as I do because it's really the most amazing professional community. So I'm looking forward to seeing people.
Amazing. Thank you so much.